Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was a...
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Celestial Oddities PairOfNormal Guys podcast radio show. I am Garrett Jagaman.
And I am Daniel James.
And we're very happy to have you listening in tonight. Daniel, why don't you tell them what it is that they're going to be checking out this evening?
So tonight's going to be another good one. We are going to be discussing the concept of the inner earth and the inner earth civilizations. There's a lot of different directions that we can go with this, and as usual, Garrett and I are going to be giving you our thoughts, feelings, our theories, everything that we've researched, and we're really going to dive into this and collect some stories out of you guys. Let's hear what we really want to talk about. Garrett, why don't you kick us off with this one?
I will, and I want to go ahead, and before I do that, as normal, I want to say that if you are listening out there, please feel free to click the share button, the like button, and the follow button. Whether you're listening to us live, streaming it after the fact, or downloaded this episode, the more that you do that, the more that we move up within the podcasting ranks and community, the more people that find out about the show, and ultimately the bigger and better things that we can do. With that being said, we are airing on all online major retailing platforms, whether that be Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Google Play, you name it, we are on it. So go ahead and check us out on whatever platform you like best. If you want to talk to us during the show, leave your commentary, your ideas and thoughts, or even ask Daniel and I questions during the show, you can do that through the Spreaker app, and that's Spreaker, and that's on the Spreaker app market, or the app market, I should say, search Spreaker, or go to www.spreaker.com. If you check us out on there, you can talk to us live during the show. We would love you to do so, and we even have the capability of taking on phone calls during our episodes now. So if you want to be involved in that, feel free to chat with us on the IM instant message part of that, and we can tell you how to do so. Now, did want to say that we do have a fun-filled evening for you tonight and a great topic, as Daniel had said. And in order for me to go into that and tell you a little bit more about that, I need everyone out there listening to do the following steps. Unless you are driving your vehicle or operating heavy machinery, don't listen to me if you're doing that. But for anybody else listening out there, take a moment, close your eyes, and imagine along with me. And there's 2 reasons that we're doing this. I need to take you on the journey that we're going to be presenting to you tonight. And also, I need you to be in the same mind state that I am in right now and that you need to be in to really take this journey. So the reason I'm saying that is I want you to close your eyes. I want you to get relaxed. I want you to open up your mind. Knock down all the walls that you have of rules and restrictions, your normal thought patterns, the things that you've been taught, the things that you've learned over the years. I want you to forget about them for a moment. I want you to go back to a time where you were a child, where your mind was endless, you were full of curiosity, you didn't know all the things that you were taught by science and math and all the different subjects out there and all the theories and everything that were, given to you. I want you to clear your mind of all of that and just go back to that child that has a wondrous mind. Take a deep breath and let it out and go back to that time period. I need you to do so because in order for you to listen to what we have to say tonight, you have to have an open mind. You have to forget about what you were told, about what you've learned, about what you were taught, because those things have no place here this evening. You need to have an open mind for you to be able to take in what I'm telling you, because right off the bat you might listen and say, well, that's ridiculous. How could that even be possible? But then at the same time, I want you to think everything that you know now, how is that possible? Because you were told? Because you were taught that? Think about language for a minute. Think about words. What are words? Words are a visual representation of the words and sounds that we make audibly. Words at one point didn't exist. They were something someone created. It's hard for you to visualize a world without words, without a language. But at one point in time, those things existed. They only became real because someone made them real to you in your version of reality. So I need you to take a step back and know that everything that you know, whether true or false, has been given to you, has been taught to you. So forget some of those things. I want you to go into it with an open mind, but I need you to be able to listen and analyze for a moment the possibilities of other things out there beyond what your normal mind can fathom. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and journey. This journey is long, this journey is treacherous, and it's going to take you into the center of the earth. It's going to take you into what we were told is not possible. They tell us that there is no way that you can go into the center of the earth because it's full of liquid hot magma, it has a hot core, it's nothing but rock and different layers of shell. And we are going to take you past that. We're going to take you inside of something that you were told couldn't be possible and tell you about how there is a very big possibility of civilizations living inside the core, under our feet. We're also going to talk about the hollow earth theory and how there is possibly a whole different world inside of the one that we live in, as well as possibly the fact that maybe we are inside the world and actually we are not on the surface. So we're going to touch base on several of those factors tonight. I want Daniel to kick off with his theories and his thoughts on this subject. I will come back and give you mine, and we will certainly dig deep. If you were listening out there, please feel free to use the instant message part and chat with us. We would love to hear your thoughts and your questions. But like I said, just take yourself back to that childhood state, full of wonder with an open mind, and let's hear what we have to say. Daniel, why don't you tell them what you have researched and what your thoughts are on inner earth civilizations or subterranean civilizations.
Sounds good, guys. Well, I will go ahead and kick this off, and then I am going to turn it back over to you, Garrett, because I'm always fascinated to hear about the things that you've researched. Now, as anybody who's been listening to this show knows already, I'm more of the metaphysical side. And I'm going to use a metaphysical approach when talking about everything that I understand about this concept. Now, if you're involved in the truther community or the conspiracy theory community or alternative media community, disclosure, ETs, things like that, you might be familiar with a gentleman who goes by the name of Corey Goode. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Corey Goode talks about with his intel and his content, but he's one of the earlier names in our community who went on record to start talking about the inner earth civilizations. And for those who are unfamiliar with Corey Goode, you can do a basic YouTube search on him. He has channels and content that you can study as well. But he's somebody who definitely talks about more of the ET side of things. And this was a couple of years ago, back when I started studying the inner earth concept. So let's talk about it metaphysically and let's talk about it geographically. Well, there is obviously the hollow earth theory that, similar to the moon itself, the planet is not full of magma and lava, but it's actually hollowed out, and that there are civilizations of humanoid, extraterrestrial, cryptid type of beings living inside the earth. So the way Corey understands it, and some of my other channelings and my research as well, leads me to the fact that it's not actually hollow, but that it's honeycombed, and that there are tunnel systems. Now, this is just speaking in terms of like a geographical, physical perspective, that it's honeycombed with tunnel systems that go deep, deep, deep into the Earth's core. And within these tunnel systems, it's to my understanding that this is where so many species of our cryptids exist and live in hiding. So many species of humanoid beings. And we can talk more about those, but I do have to shift over to the more metaphysical side. It's been brought to my attention through communication with extraterrestrials that not only do we have real, tangible tunnel systems that lead into the Earth where physical extraterrestrial beings and cryptids exist, but there are also portal systems that are fundamentally invisible. And without a sensitivity to them or technology to read them, you can actually travel into real, tangible tunnel systems, but pass through a portal without even knowing it. And once you go through one of these portals or vortexes, you're actually entering into what's called as the fourth density or the fifth dimension. And when you cross into those different frequency bands, that's when you're going to start accessing entirely new worlds altogether. Okay, so Garrett, I don't exactly know what you have planned, so I hope I'm not stepping on your toes at all, brother, here, but we are going to talk about some of the civilizations that exist within these portal systems and these tunnel systems that get into lighter densities and dimensions that are still within our Earth.
No, that would be perfect, because I am talking about it from a little bit of a different angle, still very similar, but that would actually be the perfect opposite side.
Good. All right, awesome. So there are a couple races that I'd like to talk about, and these are races that have been channeled. These are races that people have claimed to physically have met by inadvertently traveling into these portal systems, into these vortexes, and coming out into other worlds. We have what's called as the Agarthans. Now, Agartha is supposed to be a fourth density, fifth dimensional city that exists within our Earth, but in an alternate reality in a lighter density. And these are the beings that more so physically resemble like the elves that you would see in Lord of the Rings. I do believe that the elves in the Lord of the Rings stories in those films were actually modeled after the physical appearance of the beings from Agartha, who are fourth density in vibration. We also have beings from Telos, which are also known as the Telosians. And these are more so of an offshoot of the ancient Lemurian race. For those who study Atlantis and Lemuria, which are societies of humanoid beings that predate, our civilization, Homo sapien, civilizations that existed on Earth in our reality before we did. You've got the Telosians, Lemurians, Agarthans, Atlanteans, all of those species. You also have this is going to be a little bit more controversial, but the Mayans, okay? It's also said that the ancient Mayans that lived in our density, which is the third density, actually evolved or went through a form of ascension where they shifted so high in their vibrational frequency that they didn't actually go extinct or just, blend in with human society, but they actually evolved in a more spiritual way and moved into the inner Earth civilizations where their frequency is already more of a match to the reality that they exist in. So Mayans, being very humanoid like us, it is said that they live in the tunnel systems now, but they're very technologically advanced, even using things like ships and crafts. Let's see, so what else do we have? There are some other extraterrestrial races and species that we can talk about that are also very advanced, but I think that those are some of the more well-known ones, some of the more entry-level ones, before diving deep into more of the complicated subspecies and subraces, because from what I understand, there are many. But I want to go backwards a little bit. I know I started with the more physical, practical aspect, and then I went into the more metaphysical side where we're getting into alternate dimensions and densities. But going back into the more physical side and talking about the cryptids, a lot of people say, well, how come we never find any of these creatures or these species, and how are they so elusive? Well, I do believe that they retreat and they hide within these tunnel systems. And so many species exist that we don't know about going into mountainsides and caverns and inner Earth colonies, which, like I said, are more tunnels and honeycomb-shaped systems. We could even have dinosaurs. We could have, reptilian species. We could have insectoid species that are all still very third density, physical, like you and I. These are the cryptids and the, extraterrestrial beings that are physical at our bandwidth that are living in these tunnel systems now in a physical way. Okay. If you go back to the Germans, it's said that the Germans were technologically advanced beyond their time, and they were building, secret bases in Antarctica, and they were, going to the moon and going to Mars way before we even thought that they were. Well, from the start of it, they actually were traveling into the inner Earth civilizations and not only discovering cryptids and, extinct species by traveling into these tunnel systems, but they were also some of the earlier human civilizations that broke into the portal systems and the tunnel systems that lead into alternate realities and densities, and then started interacting with, Agartha and other of the extraterrestrial lighter density beings. So I know that's a lot of data to dump on you guys. I know that it's a little strange. It might be new to some of you guys. Some of this you may have already heard or researched yourself. Because if you just do a basic YouTube search on the inner Earth or the honeycomb Earth, you're going to find guys like Corey Goode and David Wilcock and some other, like secret space program insiders who will talk about our own inner Earth civilizations and vortexes and portals and things like that. So that's sort of my entry-level concept into talking about the inner Earth and the inner Earth, hollow Earth civilizations. Garrett, I would love for you to go ahead and take over and tell everybody what you've researched and what your perspective is on this concept.
Absolutely, and thank you for your knowledge on that with the different beings and things that can be found in this theory in the inner Earth. And I want to, proposition you guys with a question. Is Earth inside the universe or vice versa? Since we can grasp only a model of reality, how do we know what's real? And I found that online, and I liked that a lot during my research because that is very deep. Because the normal theory would be that we live on the surface of a rock and the gravitational pull keeps us held down on this rock. That there is an outer space, that there are several other planets and stars. There are the Milky Way galaxy, there are millions of other galaxies out there, and that makes the universe. That is what we have been taught, that is what we have learned over the years, that's what's been beaten into our minds. Now, with the research that I have done, there is a very opposite theory. That what if, two different ones we'll speak about, but what if this Earth, what we call Earth, is actually the universe itself? Now, what I mean by that is, what if we live in the center of the Earth? We believe we live on the outside surface and that below us is rock, is a hot core, and that for 4,000, just shy of 4,000 miles it takes to get to the Earth's core. The farthest that we have ever journeyed into the Earth's core, ever, in our entire existence of humanity, has been 8 miles. That's the farthest that we could go before the bits of the drills that we were using burned up because of the heat. 8 miles into a 4,000 mile journey to the center of the Earth. So it obviously means that we have not explored very far, we've only scratched the surface. Now, there is a theory that within the Earth there is not a hot lava core, but rather an open world with everything that you could imagine in it. There is, instead of us being on the outside of the Earth, we live within the Earth. That it is so large inside of this Earth, or inside of this planet, that actually what we look up, we still see air. We still see what appears to be a just endless sky. But in actuality, we are inside of a dome. That we are still held down by a gravitational pull to the ground that we are on, but around us is a 360-degree bubble. So instead of living on the outside of a 360, we live on the inside. That there are still a moon, there are still stars, there are still planets. Now, so there's different variations of this theory, but think about that. It is so vast within the inside of this giant rock that there are still stars, there is still a space, there are still planets within it. That there are tunnel systems that lead you in to the Earth. Like we would almost think we're going down, you would be going up or out, but still miles upon miles of cavern systems that lead to possibly the outside of this giant rock, which could lead to a whole other, topic we could talk about at another time. But we believe that we live on this small planet that we haven't even begun to find all the mysteries out yet of it. But I want to proposition you with the thought of, what if the gravitational pull is holding us down? What if the air around us and space around us is just as real as it ever has been, but instead of being on the out, we are on the in? There is still a suspended sun that causes light. Half of it is fiery, half of it is light, half of it is dark. It does rotate, so just like we've always been taught, there is sun during the day, there is the moon at night. But these things exist within the bubble and the circumference of the rock that we live on. And if you were to journey into the cavern systems, it takes you far into other things around us that we don't even begin to know about because we've only ever journeyed 8 miles down or 8 miles up, 8 miles in, whatever you want to say. That is one theory to think about. The second theory is that we live exactly the way that we always have thought we have. We live on the outside of the planet. There are entrances on the polar caps of North and South poles that lead down into the world, as well as other tunnel systems that have been found over time that lead deep down into the earth. And within the earth, there is a hollow core, the same as my other theory I just told you. But we do live on the outside rather than the in. And on the inside, there is a vast world of amazing sights and things that we will never begin to fathom. As Daniel said, there could be the home of cryptids, which I believe there very well could be. That there are a lot of creatures that we believe to be alien, paranormal, that it's some type of pseudoscience because it's something we don't understand and believe in. But maybe they've been there all along. Maybe rather than aliens, maybe they're just another race of people. Maybe they are just another species of animal. There are a lot of things said to be within this hollow earth that we don't begin to know and we are kept hidden from, or that are kept hidden from us because of a lot of different political issues. And one of the reasons that I state this, for those out there just think I'm rambling on about just, craziness, a very highly decorated admiral had back in 1947 made very, very bold statements. And his name was Admiral Richard Byrd. Some of you may have known about him, some of you may not. Admiral Byrd was a very well decorated admiral in the Navy. He had done a lot of explorations of this planet into unknown territories, one of which was going across the polar caps of Antarctica. He said during his explorations of Antarctica that they found a hole that led down into the earth, a trench of some sort. They went down into this hole. This was hundreds of miles across barren, freezing, frigid ice. That they came to a giant hole in the earth that once they went down into it a distance, led to things that they were beyond their imagination. Forests, other bodies of water and oceans, alien races that they communicated with, creatures and animals that we have never seen before prior. A vast abundance of all natural resources of coal and natural gas, things like plutonium, things that are, good and bad, resources out there, an abundance of them. Now, he spoke briefly on this subject on a TV show in the early 1900s when TV was, black and white. It was very early stages of it. He was on a show where he actually gave a statement, and you can find this on YouTube. Look it up. This is real facts. That he journeyed and did this exploration, and that's what they were interviewing him about. But what they didn't think or know was what he was going to tell them on live TV. And that is that he found a hole in the earth that he traveled into, that he met aliens, and that he spoke with them. Now, during the show, he doesn't say about the aliens, so let me backstep for a moment. He says that he found another world with oceans and just forests and a whole continent that they never knew existed, that was hidden from the rest of the world, that none of us knew were there, because it's just such a frigid journey across such desolate ice. But in his own private journal that was found years later, he detailed his accounts of that same exact, exploration that he told us about on the TV show, but in much more depth. And in this journal entry, had talked about meeting alien races. Now, we think of aliens as space creatures that come from other planets. But what if the aliens are actually just another race of people living on our own planet and a part of it that we never knew existed? And that was Admiral Byrd's, sworn testimony, so to speak, of what he encountered. Now, he did say during that TV show that he was looking to go back with a much bigger, party with him to explore this land, to talk more with, or find more out about the land. He didn't talk about the aliens. He was smart. He only kept that in his private journal that was found later on. But he did talk about the lands and how he wanted to go back and explore them deeper because there was just such an abundance, and they had only seen such a small amount because it was very, very vast. Now, during that show, you see people look at each other that are broadcasting like, what did he just do? Why did he say that? Almost like, should we cut the show? What do we do? That actually was removed from television. You couldn't find that until years later, whenever the internet became popular, people were able to find old episodes of things and rebroadcast them, and now they really can't get rid of it because too many people have posted it. But then it came out about his journal entries. And, in his journal, like I said, he talks about the alien races and talks about all the things that are there, and he actually had stated in his journal entry that these aliens said that they knew that we were there, on the outside of the planet, that they have been watching us for a very long time, and that they would come at the right time when Earth hit a devastating time where we were pretty much at a catastrophic level, and they would bring abundances of resources that were needed, and they would help save us as a race and our planet. He did not say as to when that would be, how they came to be, and anything of that nature, but he did state clearly that he met another race within our own planet. So take a moment to think about that. This is not coming from a regular Joe down the street that's just telling you a far-fetched story. This came from a highly respected, decorated admiral of the Navy. So that right there should put it into perspective. Now, this is not a new theory. This has been around for quite some time. That was the early 1900s whenever he talked about that, but much prior to that, it was talked about. Cyrus Reed Teed, what a hell of a name, Cyrus Reed Teed, you heard that right, back in 1869, was a fundamentalist who came up with the theory of a hollow world, a hollow earth. Now, some might say that that's not new because obviously there was Journey to the Center of the Earth, which happened 5 years sooner, or 5 years previous to that. But he had talked about the theory of a hollow earth with vast forests, large trees, intelligent civilizations far beyond what we even knew existed, far beyond the technology that we hold. He started his own church, or some might say a cult. He had made several published books, and had amassed many disciples that followed him in this theory. So this wasn't something that people took foreign to them. A lot of people embraced it and wanted to be a part of this. A lot of people afterwards took to that. William Fairfield Warren wrote a book called Paradise Found in 1885, where he presented his belief of the origination of the humanity, and that there's a continent in the Arctic called Hyperborea, and that's the early components of hollow world and hollow earth. So I want you to think for a moment, like I've said several times throughout this. Thinking is key on this. Dispel everything that you've been told about living on the outside, the inside. You don't have to believe what we're saying tonight, but all we ever ask with this show and what we present to you is open your mind. Think outside the box. We're going to touch a lot more on different things following these theories, but I wanted to present to you those two things. Living on the outside with entrances in. And one of the key things I should mention to you, and I never got to finish this part, I apologize, Admiral Byrd said he would go back and explore heavily this area. That he would mine for resources. He would bring back more knowledge of this unknown, amazing find, the biggest find that has ever happened. Shortly after that, a treaty was made that no one is ever allowed to cross into the Antarctic ice caps in certain areas without highly, highly classified documentation or access granted to them. So it's funny that you always could previous to that. He states that he found a whole world out there we didn't know existed, wanted to explore further, and then all of a sudden a ban of traveling in Antarctica had been taken care of by multiple countries across the world, and now you can't journey into certain areas of the Antarctic. They have military bases there. They have towers. They have people watching this. You cannot access it. You are not free to roam the planet you were told that you were free to roam because you are restricted. Why is that? Daniel, what is your thoughts?
I mean, it's perfect. You and I are always right in sync, and I am going to disclose a little bit of a behind the scenes here for people that Garrett and I, collectively choose a concept to talk about. But he does his own private research and brings his own information to the table, and I do the same thing. We don't make a big organized game plan as far as to what specifically we're going to say or discuss in these episodes, because we want to keep it very free thought and free form. And one thing that I'm always impressed with is how in alignment Garrett and I are in our beliefs and our opinions on the concepts that he and I choose. What we're talking about with Antarctica could be in its own episode. I believe that there are not only flash frozen ancient civilizations that are on the surface, which is why Antarctica is a no-fly zone in a lot of parts. It's also why, yes, you need military clearance to go beyond certain points within Antarctica, and it is protected by military enforcement. Because not only are we talking about giants here in frozen civilizations of extraterrestrial and ancient civilizations, but we're also talking about the big key here, access points and portal systems into the inner Earth. And then really dive in even deeper to Garrett's theories and concepts. Not only am I congruent with the fact that it's almost like, speaking in terms of metaphysics, it's like going within is actually going further outside. So what Garrett said about maybe we are on the inside, I love that. That's that thinking outside of the box concept that we all really need to start exploring. The way I understand physical reality, and this is once again totally another episode. I understand physical reality as actually being somewhat of a dream, in the sense that it is physical, and we are bound by matter and atoms, subatomic particles. But physical matter and our physical reality is just a dimensional frequency, okay? Which means that all of your outer world is your inner world. So going within the Earth could be going outside of the Earth. That's why it's described in those ancient texts, in those books, and the journey to the center of the Earth, stories where people go into these tunnel systems, and all of a sudden they're in a vast land that's lush with forests and vegetation and extinct animals. That there's a sun down there, and that there are oceans.
Dan, you still there? I think we might have had some technical difficulties. It sounds like I might have lost Dan, but that's okay. We will let him pick up right where he left off in a moment. Oh, there we go. I lost you there for a minute, brother.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I heard you say there are vast oceans, and then you cut off there for a minute.
Vast oceans, and there's even a sun. And forests, and extinct animals and creatures that we've never seen before inside the Earth, because I believe that you
might be having some trouble with internet connection tonight on Dan's end, folks. We apologize for any technical difficulties. Sometimes, with the phone calls and internet and storms and things going on, which there certainly was a storm here earlier. It was pretty brutal. Sometimes that will happen. So we apologize if we are losing Dan, but we'll make sure we get him back. I can always continue in the meantime. Dan, if you can hear me, you feel free to chime back. I don't know if you're there or if I lost you.
Yeah, I hear you.
There you go. Okay, I lost you again there for a minute, but I think we're good.
Yeah, my internet's good, man. You never know what kind of interference we're getting when we're talking about certain things. You know what I'm saying?
That is true too.
People trying to shut us down. What I'm saying is that I believe physical reality is less physical than we think it is. It's more like a dream, in a sense that if maybe when we go inside the Earth, we're just going deeper into the universe. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree fully. Like I said, I think There for a long time, whether you believe the earth is round and it's exactly the way that we've been taught, whether you believe it's a flat earth or whether you believe it's a hollow earth, all three, I think, equally have enough plausibility to be true. And it's funny that people would laugh at you and mock you for saying, oh, you believe the earth is flat or you believe it's hollow. You are ridiculous. I always laugh and say, why do you believe it's round? And what is your answer? Because that is what you were taught. That is what you were shown. I look at it from the perspective that if I took a child, I took my child, I have a newborn child. If I took him and stuck him in a room, I taught him personally myself his whole adolescence. I gave him books that were written by either myself or someone else, but never told him they were from me. I taught him everything opposite of everything that you guys and girls out there have ever been taught. That would be his reality. That would be his truth.
Yep.
He would know no different. He would fight and argue the theories and things that were taught to him because that is what he was told. That is what, and I'm doing the winky face, that is what science, that is what the powers that be taught him are real. So when you try to go against the construct of what someone believes is real, they will fight it tooth and nail. But take a step back, disassemble those beliefs, and come up with new ones. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily believe that that is ultimate truth, but think of the fact that it could be. Just because it's not what you were taught does not mean that it is not real. Do you always believe everything you're told to you? Do you trust the people telling you? Because it is a fact that a child's mind is actually stunted once they enter school.
Yep.
And that is a very alarming thing, that a child's mind is much more open. It's endless. It's more of the we use 10% of our brain, 90% sits dormant. A child's is 100% open until you put them into the schooling system. Because they are taught things and exactly this is how it has to be. This is what fact is. And that's when their imagination starts to die. That is a sad thing because imagination isn't always just imagination. It's the possibility of seeing truths that we do not want to see. And there are reasons behind that. Daniel made a joke a moment ago, but not so much of a joke, that powers that be might try to shut this down. They could interfere with this. And you could ask, oh, okay, that's a bunch of nonsense, but not necessarily, because a lot of people would ask, why would they keep openings to an inner world if we're on the outside and keep us from going out, or if we're on the in, keep us from going out to the outside? I know it flip-flops. Sometimes it's hard to really take all what I just said in because of the inverse back and forth. But think of it as we talked about on another episode, last month's episode actually. Why would they stop us from doing so? Well, the two biggest things in the world that were ran by is religion and politics, the biggest money earners in the world. And if you found that there is an inside world within our planet that proves that space, or what we believe to be our space, the outer space that we've been taught, doesn't actually exist, that within our planet lies a whole civilization of creatures, animals, beings, aliens that we've never been able to get to because it's very rare that they come out, very rare that we go in, or at least that we know about, and all of that is there, then automatically that makes you question everything. Everything that you've been taught is a lie. If everything you've been taught instantly is turned upside down, then you lose yourself. You learn who you were taught and trained to be. So they keep it separate. NASA at one point in time didn't exist. Why did they create the NASA program? Was it to discover new planets? Or was it to hide the inner truth of what really is out there? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. These are the questions they don't want you to ask yourself. If you take someone and you teach them, as I said, everything that they need to know, whether true or not, and they believe it, you have now trained them. When you train them, you can use them for mutual benefit. When we are trained to believe a certain way, when we are trained to do a certain thing, we are beneficial. We make money for people. We make things for people. We build cities. We do things beyond our knowledge and realization of why we're doing them. It's just everyday life, but there's people benefiting from that, all because of belief systems. But if you deconstruct and destroy those belief systems, you crumble an entire civilization, because maybe the truths of the civilization were born on lies. And that, like I said, is what you need to think about. because it is nothing new to know that beneath our feet is much more than we realize. 8 miles has been explored of 4,000 miles to the Earth's core. And if that's even true numbers, but that's what we know as scientific proof as of right now. They have already discovered that there is an ocean that expands the entire planet, miles beneath our feet. It is a recent discovery that this ocean is ginormous compared to the oceans that we realize as oceans. This ocean actually would take up all of the oceans on our planet that we specifically know about easily. It's that big. So all of the oceans that we know about all together in one mass wouldn't be nothing compared to the size of the ocean that has been recently discovered under our feet. Aside from that, there are other things that have been discovered. One that comes to mind is Kuyu. Kuyu is a civilization that's 250 feet below the surface, and there were structures found there. And it's a giant recess in the earth that is 18 stories or 18 floors, deep or high, however you want to look at it. It's an ancient civilization, ancient structures that could have held up to 20,000 people. 20,000 people could have lived within this structure found under the earth that they had no idea existed prior to that. So whenever you say it's not possible that we could live within the earth, it's not possible that there could be civilizations under the earth, there already has been. This is fact. This is not a theory. This is something that has happened. And that is something to certainly research into if you're hearing this. Now, recently I watched a video, and I wish I could tell you what part of the earth it was on. I just caught the tail end of it. But it was footage of them deep, deep inside a cavern system. Now, they were calling it Agartha, which is not a new term. That is actually a very well-known term about a city of giants. But they were calling this new discovery Agartha. Agartha is said to be the land of giants, where there is a smoky sun and a smoky god there that lives, that it is the center of the earth, that, there's billions of, inhabitants on this planet that don't know exist, but it is below our feet. And there is, like I said, giants there. There are cryptids. There's all kinds of things that live there. Well, recently there was a discovery that they're calling Agartha in the name of that same city, because they're saying that, almost saying that we found the lost city of Agartha. Well, this city that they found goes down well beyond what we've already traveled to a lush, lush forest. I've seen it with my own eyes. Not personally there, but the footage that they had, unless that is doctored and faked, they were down there and were saying about how this discovery is just mind-blowing, that there is water flowing. There is air down there. There is pockets of rock that actually let translucent light come through, which makes it look like the sun is shining directly on you while you're in this cavern system, though you are surrounded by rock and the sun is hundreds, if not thousands of feet above you through rock. How is that possible? How do you see sunlight through thousands of feet of rock? There are forests, which I've seen in this footage, deep, dense forest. There are species of animals. And they said they've only begun to scratch the surface of the cavern system that they have now discovered. Now, I need to look it up, and I apologize I didn't have that ready. I wasn't specifically going to talk about that tonight. But this is something that has been discovered. So when people, as I said, say there's no possible way that any of this could have bearing to it, it is already happening. Structures have already been found under the Earth's surface. They have already found forests, oceans, riverways, columns, light that are going on below the surface. And once again, that isn't even miles deep. That's only thousands of feet deep. What happens when you go deeper and deeper? What is beyond that? Daniel, your thoughts?
I love it. I really do. I'm right there. I'm right there with you, man. I think and I feel exactly the way that you do about these things. And here's really just the all-encompassing way that I can describe it to you, what my belief is of the inner earth. As within, so without. As above, so below. I believe that everything and everyone that exists inside the planet, inside the Earth, and in parallel dimensions, everything that exists in space is all in some way, shape, or form connected to us and within us. I think that our school system, the Common Core system, was literally designed by experts to dumb down and limit, stifle the children's ability to think for themselves, think outside the box, stay creative, stay artistic, and be the way showers that we really need right now. I think that there are so many structures and paradigms that we are just immersed in as children that make it almost impossible for us to really get to the point where we can understand these concepts from a more greater multidimensional perspective. And, you touched on something earlier in the episode that I want to circle back to real quick. I'm somebody who's very passionate about extraterrestrial contact. It's something you're going to hear me talk about as an underlining theme in everything that, I bring to the table here on this show. And I believe that when we do have not just disclosure about aliens and extraterrestrials, but when we have what's called as first contact or open first contact as a, mass consensive race, the human race, I don't think that it'll be little green men from the sky. I don't think that it'll be any, portal opening up in the clouds and aliens come and land on, the lawn of the White House. I think that it will be beings right here, right living amongst us as we speak. Could be the very beings inside of our Earth, inside of these alternate realities and these densities and dimensions, like the Agarthans or the Telosians, or, there's another race called the Delphi. Could be the ancient Mayans, but we're talking beings that live right here and have always been here with us. Not the little green men coming from space, but no, the ones that have always been, right by our side. And I also believe that they look very, very similar to humans, that we share genetics and DNA with us, with them, and they're our ancestors in a sense, which would also make the concept of having open contact and direct communication with beings like this from our inner Earth a lot less invasive and less threatening if they actually look like us and have a similar appearance and frequency as us. And I believe that these are the beings that live within our inner Earth, both physically and metaphysically in terms of being alternate realities. So, like I said, guys, as within, so without. As above, so below.
I love that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I planned on saying tonight was that exact phrase.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of you have heard that, but that stems from the Bible itself. Now, we can get into the whole topic of religion and things another time. I touched base on the fact that if a lot of these things were proven real, that religion would fall apart, that politics would fall apart, structures would, perish. But there is a lot of truth in the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe in the Quran, whether you believe in any of the religions out there. There's a lot of similarities.
It's just been distorted.
It's been distorted. It's based off factual information, which a lot of flair to it. They took a good story and they embellished it to make it a better one. And one of the things said in the Bible is that exact term, as above, so below. Could be something easily overlooked, nothing to think about, but when you do think about it, it speaks volumes. Whether you believe in the regular world that you were told, whether you believe in the hollow earth or the flat earth, either way, it still makes sense. As above us, so below. Flat earthers a lot of times believe that we are inside some type of bubble, and above us it might not be space, but rather oceans above us after the firmament, which is the dome that keeps us in here.
Right.
Like there's water above us and there's oceans below us, as above, so below. Some people believe that we were put here by some type of other ultimate race, that we are literally an anthill inside a giant dome glass case, and we were being watched. Exactly. Yep. All of it together, though, still does not, go against that fact that as above us, so below us. Even the hollow earth, as above us, so below us. And what's above, what's below? If we are inside the middle of the earth, there's rock below our feet. We're held to that rock, even though we might be inside the bubble, rather on top of it. You still have ground below you that if you dig through, you believe you're going down, but maybe you're going up. But still, as above us, so below us. There's space around us. You dig through the tunnels, you go out the other end, and you're on top of the planet. There's space around us. It's a fascinating concept. It's something to think about. As I said, You know, there's a lot of reasons that'd be kept secret. There was an explorer by the name of Clough, last name Clough. He actually had plans of going to the North Pole and going on an inner Earth expedition. Ironically, he had people that were going to go on that expedition with him. Unfortunately, before it could happen, multiple setbacks happened for him and his team. And when I say multiple setbacks, I mean several. I mean several of the members of the team died, from things ranging from cancer to plane crashes, all before he went on his expedition. He made statements himself saying that he believes that the international banking system is the cause of all of this, that they seen to it for a fact that he could not make this exploration to prove these things happened and were real. Similar to Admiral Byrd, he had made statements that this was here and he was going to go back and explore. Next thing you know, you never heard about him exploring it again. He never, for all we know, ever did explore it again, and all of a sudden access became restricted to that area. Funny enough, recently, and this is scientific proof as well, there has been a giant fissure or hole appear in the Arctic caps. This is seen by satellites, even though I don't necessarily know if I believe in satellites. If you go into some of the theories I believe, such as the Hollow Earth, I don't know if I believe in space, or at least what we were told space. Like I said, I don't really believe in outer space. I believe in inner space. But supposedly, and I believe that this very well could be real, at least this fact, is that there is a fissure or a giant hole that appeared in the Arctic caps. Now, many years ago, I think it was 40 or 50 years ago, this hole was there. Scientists were baffled on how it showed up. No idea where it came from. It is massive. At the time, 40 or 50 years ago, it was relative to the size of Oregon. That is a massive, massive hole in the ground, or in the ice. Over time, it had vanished and disappeared, covered by ice again, to be never seen, they thought. Just vanished. How does that happen? How does it appear out of nowhere? How does it disappear out of nowhere? That's a good question. Well, within the last several years, it has reappeared again. And this time, it's not as big, but it is the size of the state of Maryland. Once again, have absolutely no scientific explanation how this hole, this portal, this wormhole, this tunnel, all of a sudden just shows up out of nowhere. Now, one fascinating thing to think of is they continue to hide these facts from us. They continue to restrict us from access to these type of holes or what could lay in them, the different worlds that could be under us, the different dimensions. But one thing that I truly believe in, and I think if you don't, I just truly think that you're an asshole. But I mean, that's a story for another day, and I'm sorry if I piss off any of the listeners out there. But global warming is real. It's nothing to say that the ice caps are melting. If you don't see that the ice caps are melting and that the pollution of this world and the way that us as a race is affecting the things around us, we are a virus on this planet. Whether inside it or outside, we are a virus and kill everything around us. It's in our human nature. But with the ice caps melting at a rapid rate, things are starting to unearth themselves. Dinosaurs, woolly mammoths. I just read an article that hundreds of bones from hundreds of woolly mammoths were found on melted ice caps. I also read that a lot of methane gas has now leaked from underneath the ice caps that have now melted, and they're pouring into the ocean. It's polluting the ocean, natural pollution. It's changing the air and the temperature around it itself by these things leaking out. So that is very interesting as well. How long can these things be hidden from us once all the ice is gone? And that's something to think about. But I definitely think that it's something you guys need to think about. If you have thoughts on it, please leave us emails or send us emails. Please leave us comments and let us know. You can hit us up at any time at brutalbusinessent@gmail.com. Again, that is brutalbusinessent@gmail.com. You can message Daniel or myself on Facebook. Any way that you can reach us, please do, and let us know your thoughts, because certainly there is a vast world out there that we are not fully familiar with. I don't believe we even scratched the surface. As I said, we tell people that we only use 10% of our brain, which is hard to fathom, that 90% of our own mind sits dormant. What if we only know 10% of our own world? 90% of it has never truly been given to us, explored, or even realized. And I believe that that is the case. I believe that we've already certainly found certain, significant finds, like the cavern I told you earlier with the dense forest, which is the exact definition of Agartha, that these forests would allow for beings that we don't know about. The air, the nutrients and things down there could allow for people to grow much bigger in size than they do here, much healthier for giants, that they could hold just wonders that we don't know about, that there could be alien races and things held within it. And I believe that that is certainly the case. Call me crazy, call me a nut for thinking differently than you do, but when you think I'm crazy for thinking these things, I think you're crazy for not. That is my research of tonight's topics. Daniel, do you have any other closing statements, anything else that you would like to add before closing out tonight's episode?
Well, in closing, guys, I'm going to repeat this and really, think about it and see what it means for you. As within, so without. As above, so below. And we're not going to stop talking about this stuff. We're not going to stop collecting stories. We're not going to stop sharing our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs. We're not going to stop spreading awareness and expanding consciousness through exploring, alternative ways to look at the world that we live in and the reality that we assume is our own. So I would like to personally thank everybody that's listening to this. And if you listen to the recording, please feel free to reach out to either of us and share your stories. Garrett and I are keeping a log of everything that you guys tell us to someday help everybody who comes into this information from more of an entry-level perspective and they need resources. And we're your guys. We're not going to stop, and we're here to help.
Absolutely. You heard Daniel. If you have any questions, any concerns, want to tell us your stories, your experiences, want to hear certain topics talked about on the show, anything in between, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our next episode, which is the second part of our series, as I've mentioned before, we have a two-part series, Daniel and I together on PairOfNormal Guys podcast, and then Oddworld Listeners Encounters. That episode of Oddworld Listeners Encounters will air 1 week from today, the 23rd, where you can hear stories from people around the world talking about different things. Next episode, we have ghost stories of different hauntings. We have a gentleman from Mississippi talking about several aircrafts that he has seen in the sky, several different shapes, light balls, very, very great detailed alien UFO sightings. So it's going to be a very great episode to certainly listen to. If you have encounters, please reach out to us, not just for the content on the show, not just for questions and concerns, but if you have anything happening to you that you can't explain, please, we would love to talk to you and see if we can help. I had someone reach out to me recently, which is another part of this that I do. I do have a paranormal team. I do investigate myself. And we recently had a gentleman reach out and ask us about possibly coming to his home because he has, since moving into a new residence, known he's very depressed, not feeling like himself. Everything's dull and gray. He's hearing voices. Things are moving within the house. He feels troubled that something is trying to slowly drain him until there's nothing left. He wants me to come out and explore that house, research it, and see if I can help. And those are the type of things that I do. So if you have anything like that going on, please reach out to me. I will offer any help that I can. Daniel will do the same. And like I said, we are here to help you open your mind and think out outside the constructs of what you've been taught, to bring you information that maybe you never heard about, that you want to know about. And like I said, just to help you in your everyday lives of anything that could be terrorizing you, whether paranormal or beyond. So as Daniel said, in closing tonight, we do thank you in everything that you do for us, for listening, for sharing, for messaging us and sharing your experiences. And we will close this out tonight with, as Dan said, as above, so below, as within, as without. Thank you so much for listening tonight, and we will catch you next time on Celestial Oddities PairOfNormal Guys Radio.